The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the policy or position of ONTV's management, staff, or board of directors.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Collection Reflection. I am your host, Tim Williams, and joining me, as always, my co-host, the owner, proprietor, and curator of the auditorium in Lapeer, none other than the luminescent long drink of water, Kristin Griffis.
What's up?
How are you today, Kristin?
Good. How are you?
Not bad. And let's get right into it. The segment that has taken America by storm, and it is none other than What You Got.
Okay, you go first.
Really? You want me to go first?
You always go first. It's like the thing.
That's why you need to go first.
No, that's why you go first. It's like this ritual.
Well, I need the theme music first.
Oh.
All right, there you go.
Something like that.
Okay, so I have had a antique store in my town that I've lived in for about 15 years, and I just recently visited it I take that back. I was there one other time, but they didn't have anything cool. So I found this. It's with Kong versus Godzilla coming up. It is a King Kong bank from the 60s, I believe.
Oh, nice.
What are these called? Blown. Anyway, there's like a lot of these out there. Once I looked into it, there's actually a lot of these out there and a lot of different versions of it. But
okay.
Anyway,
I feel like I've seen it before.
I showed you. I think I sent it to you before when I got it. I sent you a picture of it. But yeah, I'm kind of surprised you haven't had any of these come through your store.
No,
honestly.
I haven't. They're pretty cool though.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I'd put them in there.
Yeah. And just one other thing that you're probably recognized. Another Universal Monster toy from the 60s.
Oh, hey.
Where did I get that from?
The auditorium.
I did. So this is a Marx toy from the 60s. They did all the Universal Monsters. So I guess the thing was that you were supposed to like paint them.
Oh, okay.
So I've seen some really cool paint jobs, but I'm not gonna try it because I know I'd jack it up. But,
yeah, right.
But yeah, so it says Frankenstein right there. It's got a little brick, but
and they
anyway,
came in like purple and they came in green.
Yeah, there's different colors too, and I think there's even like glow in the dark ones out there.
So like, why come in so many colors if you're supposed to paint them?
It was the 60s. It was a crazy time.
Right.
It just
for the people who didn't want to paint them. For the people who were too lazy.
Well, yeah, then you get all the different colors up there,
Exactly.
and then you might partake in a couple mind-altering things, and I mean, who knows?
Yeah,
and then you just get to enjoy the different colors.
Yes,
it was the 60s.
It was.
So
I don't know much about them. I wasn't quite there, but
I wasn't there either. Yeah,
no.
No. Well, why are you so shocked?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think when my mom was born. I guess you're probably younger than her. Yeah.
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe I am. But anyway,
right.
Kristin, what you got?
What do I got? All right. So I brought a human skull.
Amazing.
This is a real human skull.
That is awesome.
It came from overseas. This skull was actually buried at one point.
Really?
Yep. So the brown happening on this side of the skull is actually from the person being buried and their fluids,
okay,
leaking out.
Wow.
So yeah. So it has that nice dirt patina. I never know. People always ask me, do I know who the skulls were? Like, no.
I was just gonna ask
don't.
I was just going to ask you that.
No.
Let me ask you this though, because I know that you are not a fan of ghosts. Are you ever concerned that there's something going to be attached to the bones, and it's going to start knocking stuff off the shelves of your store?
Yeah, my mind goes there. I haven't had anything happen yet. And I think it's because they respect me and they know that I'm scared. So, they don't make contact with me because they're just really nice spirits.
Excellent. Now, you have told me recently that the price of skulls
Oh, yeah.
has gone up.
Yeah, over the past year, at my shop, I like to try to sell my items cheap, keep my prices low. So about a year ago, I was able to sell a human skull for 800, 900. Well, now 1500 is about what
Really?
the lowest I can sell them for now.
Oh, okay.
So
All right.
prices, yeah. I don't know why.
You don't know why? Okay.
Maybe the popularity, like human skulls are getting more and more popular.
Really?
More and more people's looking for them. So I think it's just a supply and demand type deal.
So it's just people kind of like you that like to get them to display them
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't do anything creepy with them.
Well, I'm just asking.
Just
I
let
don't
them
know.
sit on your shelves and respect, who they once were. And yeah.
All right. That is awesome. Now that is going to be available at your store. Is that correct?
It is. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And you had another one that was available. Is that still available?
Yep. So
Okay.
I currently have 2 at my shop, along with rib bones, a bunch of other human bones.
All right. Awesome. So if anybody's in the market, anybody that's close, well, you don't even have to be close, really.
Oh, no.
Or wait, no, do you ship or no?
I do.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about that. I didn't think you did. But
I'm new
okay.
to shipping.
Okay. That's why then. All right. But if you're close, come check out the skulls. If you're not close, check out
The
her
auditorium.
store online.
Yes.
The Auditorium in Lapeer. And buy yourself a skull.
Yeah. Do it.
So
Just do it.
without further ado, though, let's get to our very special guest. Now, he does not know this, but I have been a fan of this website for about 20 years, and I think that's about as long as he's had this. So, without further ado, the creator of Toy News International, one of the best toy news websites out there, none other than Jay Cochran or JayC. And just hold on. Jason, welcome to Collection Reflection, or Jay, I should say. Welcome to Collection Reflection.
Hey, thanks for having me. I don't think I've ever come on a show being followed or leading in with human skulls.
Yeah, she kind of surprised me with that too. But
I'm a pretty tough act to follow, but I believe in you.
So, well, I'm going to let you ask that.
All right.
that
So,
first question.
yeah, the first question is tell our viewers what Toy News International is.
Toy News International covers the world of action figures and just in general pop culture, which has come, much more of kind of a cliche-ish name than when I first started the sites. But, we cover entertainment news that's related to, say, action figure brands. Now, when I say action figures, a lot of people might be thinking toys for kids, and no, not really. I mean, we cover a little bit of that stuff, but for the most part, we cover action figures and collectibles for the adult action figure collector, which has been a growing demographic over the last 20 years, especially with the boom of things like, Marvel movies and stuff like that. But essentially, I don't know how old you guys are, but if you were like a kid and you used to look at the Steers catalog for all the new toys and action figures and stuff, well, it's kind of an online version of that, essentially, where we give you looks at products that are coming out in the coming year, stuff like that. And we'll do reviews and commentary and things as well.
Well, I definitely did look at that. I don't know, did they still have those toy catalogs or the Christmas catalogs when you were a kid?
They still got them.
They did?
I mean, I feel like maybe they don't have them because they were real thick when we were kids and yeah, it's not like that no more.
Okay.
Now it's just the stuff that come in the news, in your newspaper.
Okay.
Right?
With a newspaper?
Well, it comes in your mailbox.
Okay.
Newspaper flyer.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. There's that. He's talking about when we were young, and I don't know how old Jay is either. But when I was younger, you would get a Sears catalog that was like about that thick around Christmas Day.
Same.
So you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't think you were old enough to do that.
Oh yeah.
All right.
And it had all the latest, the products for the year. So we didn't have the internet back then. So that was our only way of seeing what new products were going to be coming out and things like that.
Exactly. I remember specifically seeing He-Man and the Master of the Universe in there for the first time. I had never seen them, and then I think not too long after that, I went to the store and they were on the shelves. But yeah, I mean, you would get that, and there was stuff that you weren't aware that there was, that was coming out or
Right.
whatever. So yeah. Now, Jay, you were originally, I could be wrong, but you were originally called American Dream Comics. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
When I first started the site, my goal was not to report news on toys, but it was to actually sell toys and comics.
Oh,
I'd actually always wanted to open my own comic book store, and this is back in like 2000, when eBay and things were just starting to get going and such, and so I didn't really have the capital to open a physical store, and so I went to selling online, and then from there I started doing news. Back then there was Wizard magazine that was doing some toy news, which eventually they spun out their Toy Fair magazine from that.
yeah.
But there wasn't a lot of places to go to get information on that kind of stuff. So I had gotten the idea, well, if I'm going to sell the product, then I'll do news about it as well. That really wasn't a great idea, but it did lead to eventually me going straight into just doing the toy news stuff, which fortunately was a pretty good idea and has done me pretty well. I don't think I would have ever guessed 20 years ago that I would still be doing this now, but
I was going to ask you that. Well, like one of the big things for me in the beginning was the forums, and I mean, I have a lot of, I guess my main properties that I collect are Star Wars and probably wrestling at that point. So I was like mainly on the wrestling forum for the most part, but there wasn't like a whole lot of wrestling toy news at the time. So we just kind of talked about wrestling. Are the forums, and I will just say this, I was on there for a long time, and I have not been able to, I've tried within the last maybe 10 years or so to sign back onto my account, and I haven't been able to do it. So I don't know if I just need to re-up it or what. But is Outsiders still running the old wrestling forum for you, or no?
Yeah, Outsider is still there, and
Okay.
we don't. It probably doesn't focus as much on wrestling stuff there as he used to, but
Okay.
he does a lot of. He actually he does a lot of the reporting of like entertainment movie stuff that we post up there on the
Okay.
website. So and he's still active with that. And again, like I don't consider really, there are certainly better entertainment sites that deal with just movie news, but we kind of focus in, or try to at least, on the relevant news that is kind of like the superhero stuff and
Right.
and toys that get turned into movies and things like that. So
Right.
So are you not selling
yeah.
no more? Like selling
no,
online?
I do not sell anymore. I started out, so I was selling, and I was actually doing pretty well, but I got to the point where it was like it was either going to have to come up with money to be able to hire more people, or I wasn't going to be able to keep up. So that's when I decided that to start doing just the news full time, and just kind of stop the selling. The other thing about the doing news and selling it at the same time is there is a little bit of a conflict, because if you're selling a product and then you're reporting news or doing reviews on it, you wouldn't have incentive. If you're doing a review of a product you're selling, you wouldn't have incentive. If it was a bad product, you wouldn't want to tell people, because then they wouldn't buy it from you. So there was,
Right.
I discovered there was definitely some conflicts there with trying to do both news and selling stuff. And so I just went with the news, and then I brought on as advertisers places that, again, back then were just starting out, that were doing the full-time selling. And so that's how the sites make their money, is essentially through ad revenue.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So did you already have a background in computer stuff, or did you just say one day, hey, this can't be that hard, and I'm going to start my own website?
It was more the latter. I mean, I've always had a pretty basic understanding of electronics and computers, but I mean, when I went to college, the internet was barely even a thing. So, designing websites and things like that wasn't even really something that I had access to learning when I was in school. So
Okay.
I started out originally, like my very first website was like on back during when AOL was a big thing, and they had their little community thing. I forget what the group was called, but where you could like create your own website on their platform. And that's where I first started. And then I moved over and started another website with just basic HTML that I had learned myself.
Okay.
Eventually, I got lucky and I met a gentleman who was running another website, which is called tformers.com, which is our
familiar with that one also. Yeah.
It's our transformer specific website. But he was in fact an actual computer designer, website designer and everything. And so we got together, and like he had approached me originally because he was selling some transformer posters or something. And we just started talking and stuff. And so we ended up actually becoming partners. And so he ended up, he does actually most of the website design and things like that.
Okay. So obviously, if you were thinking about selling stuff, you already had a relatively big collection, or were you just going to kind of sell newer stuff, or were you planning on selling your personal collection originally?
It started out yes, I had, so again, it wasn't just toys. I always wanted to do a comic book store, and I had a huge comic book collection. I started collecting comics in the late 80s.
Okay.
And throughout all the 90s and into the 2000s. And at one point, like in the 90s, I probably bought every title that was published, and sometimes I would buy 2 copies and things like. I mean, I bought into the whole idea that one day I was going to be able to sell my comic book collection and essentially retire, or pay for college, my kids' college or what have you. So that didn't work out, of course, because the comic bubble bursted,
Right.
and a lot of those comics from that time period are not worth tons of money. But yeah, I essentially had tons of comics. I'd been collecting. I didn't have as much action figures back then because, I mean, as a kid, I played with Star Wars and Transformers and G.I. Joe, but I really didn't have those toys anymore as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of started getting back into action figure collecting a little bit in college, but really more after I got out of school. It was really Episode 1, the Star Wars Episode 1 movie, that really kind of pulled me back into collecting toys again. And I had sworn I wasn't going to get those, but I went into a KB stores and they were all sitting there, and it just brought back the nostalgia. So I ended up buying all those toys.
Yeah. Hey, well, that story sounds very similar, because I remember buying a Star Wars Insider magazine when they were first re-releasing the Power of the Force line, and I looked at them and I was like, I'm not gonna buy these. They're all like jacked up and look like they're on steroids. But my my ex wife, I think we were dating at the time, but she bought me the Darth Vader. And then then we were like hooked. And then her and I both were like buying everything. But so yeah, I know how that is. So you named off 3 pretty big properties there. What was your favorite toy line as a kid?
Well, Star Wars was my first action figure line that I ever had as a kid. So that probably is the nearest and dearest. But Transformers and G.I. Joe, which I went back and forth on. And it was really more, I guess, the cartoons and the comic books of Transformers and G.I. Joe that got me hooked on those properties. but those all three of those are pretty high up there on my love for action figures and stuff.
Okay.
And then the Marvel stuff in the 90s when I was in high school, the Toy Biz 5-inch figures, those really, I guess, I, I guess the episode 1 stuff is stuff I started collecting as an adult, but still, I guess I was a kid in high school, but not playing with toys per se, but those Toy Biz Marvel figures definitely got me into collecting superhero stuff.
Yeah, this is a pretty underrated line. I mean, especially as far as, I mean, because I buy a lot of different stuff, but especially as far as like the characters that they were making at that time. I mean, it was like crazy, like all the different obscure characters that Toy Biz was making in the Marvel line, especially the X-Men line back then.
Yeah, I mean, so again, going back to the comics, I had started with G.I. Joe and Transformers. That's what got me into collecting comic books. And then from there, I kind of expanded out to others like Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff. I'd walk down to my local convenience store and buy the new issues. By the time I was in high school, I was definitely collecting a lot of comics. But growing up, I really didn't have access. There wasn't a lot of superhero action figure lines when I was an actual kid. There was the Mego stuff, which predates me. Mm-hmm. And then eventually Mattel did the Secret Wars stuff, which I don't even really remember seeing as a kid. So it was really the Toy Biz stuff that really got me into, and at that point I was very active comic book reader.
I think I only ever found one of the Secret Wars line, or I at least only ever bought one, and that was Dr. Doom. But so you were more obviously a Marvel fan because you didn't get into the superpowers line from DC at all?
Definitely, I've probably always been more of a Marvel fan in general, though. I guess I would say the Michael Keaton Batman movie probably got me into DC, and then I started collecting. As I was going along, I started collecting Batman comics and things like that. And I had some of the movie figures, the Toy Biz 5-inch movie figures from Batman movie, but I didn't actively collect the superpowers line.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was more of a Marvel guy too, but as far as the toy line goes, again, there was like a lot of figures in that line that I didn't think you would get. I remember I had Hawkman, and I didn't have a ton of them, but I did enjoy that line. But I was more of a Marvel comic fan and more of a Marvel cartoon fan than I was DC. But I did buy a lot of the superpowers toys also. But
yeah, I mean, that was a great line, and they did some really cool figures with that as well. So it's just, I don't know why I didn't really get into them. I guess it's just I was more into Marvel at that point. So
yeah. So going back to like your early days online, would you kind of consider yourself a pioneer for that, as far as like a toy news website go? I mean, I could think of maybe a couple just that were like flat out Star Wars related. There might have been other ones, but as far as your site and covering everything, were you one of the first ones to do that, if not the first one to do that?
I was not the first, but yes, I was definitely one of the early ones. Like you say, back then there was a number of Star Wars fan sites, as they were called, and still called today, that focused a lot on the Star Wars toys. There was one generalized action figure website, which is still technically around today, but the original owners don't own them, and they're called figures.com.
Okay.
And there was another website that was really more of a message board, which I don't know. I think that by the time I really started getting into it, the original owners of that site had moved on to other things. But there really wasn't a dedicated website like TNI, I would say. Figures.com was the closest there was to that at that point. And obviously I did get a lot of, I would say that Toy Fair magazine influenced me. So I have a lot of respect for Toy Fair magazine. Later on, I found myself competing against them for breaking toy news and stuff, but definitely I would say they were kind of an inspiration for what I ended up doing.
Okay.
Well, wouldn't their news have been a little bit late, or did they have a website also?
No, they eventually did, and in fact, that's probably what killed them, is they were pretty slow to move to online.
Okay.
But toy companies would not release information because they were giving it to Toy Fair magazine as an exclusive.
Oh, okay.
Which is and then if something leaked out, which often did, then we would cover it, and of course then the news would, by the time they got to print, it would be old news and
Right.
and so on. So
Okay.
there was, like I said, we were different mediums to a certain extent, but there was definitely a little bit, I would say, of cross competition. But
Okay.
but I have a lot of respect for what they had done, because
Oh, yeah.
they were there were a few other toy magazines out there, but they were the only magazine. This is why the toy companies love to give them exclusives and stuff. But they were the only magazine that would, like, you could go to like your local grocery store and find them in the magazine rack.
Right.
There, whereas like there was Tomarts and Lee's and stuff,
yeah,
where if you went to your comic book shop, you would find them,
right,
but they weren't at the general every magazine rack that you go to. So that's really what made Toy Fair so unique and special, and why the toy companies loved them, because if their product was on the cover of their magazine, they figured the parents and stuff would see the product there as they're shopping for their groceries and stuff.
Right.
Question. So on your website, is there like a place where people can like communicate with you, and you know what I'm saying, like a message board type thing?
Yes, there as Tim was mentioning, there is message boards that we've always had. And just to clarify for anyone who's watching, there's T&I, which is the main website that covers general toys, but then I have 4 other websites.
Oh wow.
Or 3 active websites right now. So there's Jedi Insider, which is dedicated to covering all things Star Wars. There's Marvelous News, which is dedicated to covering all things Marvel related. And there's tformers.com, which is dedicated to covering all things Transformers. And then T&I basically just covers everything else. But each site has its own dedicated message board. And then each site also, as social media has become more and more prevalent, each site has its own Facebook page. I have a YouTube channel. So I have my own Facebook page where, essentially where I dedicate to just talking action figures and stuff. So there's multiple places where you can go and talk about stuff, talk about the news, talk about the latest products, things like that, that we have available.
Okay. Well, because, I think about these toys, and, I guess people would say they're more like, man toys, more stuff that men would want. But I think back then, like now, is it becoming more, are you seeing a lot of women on your sites talking with you about this stuff?
I won't say a lot,
Okay.
but definitely there has been a bit of a growing trend of female collectors collecting this stuff. And I think even companies have pushed more for like female type action figures and stuff. It used to be female action figures were pretty taboo in the world of the toy companies themselves. They put if it was a major, like Princess Leia, we get a figure, but generally it was thought that female action figures just did not sell well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there was some truth to that. I don't think it was like they were imagining it. I think that's what the sales number told them. But as time has gone on, I think it's grown, and not only just like female readers and stuff on the site, but like if you go on YouTube and stuff, you're starting to see female toy reviewers and things like that as well. So, and I love seeing that. I love seeing females getting interested into this kind of stuff. It's definitely a demographic that I would love to see continue to grow.
Right on. Yeah, because I think back then, and there was Barbies and there were G.I. Joes, and then they started, so we had to make our G.I. Joes and our Barbies like get married and stuff, and then eventually the boy Barbies started to get made, and like, you're taking me back a
So
little. That's all.
wait. So you're talking about the big GI Joes, though?
I'm
not
talking
the...
about the GI Joes. They were like Barbie size.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Those.
Okay. Oh, because I was just gonna say the small GI Joes that him and I played with, they had quite a few females in there, and
Okay.
they were cool.
Okay.
They were. I mean, I did buy some of those. Going back to Princess Leia, though, I can see. I mean, everybody had to have Princess Leia in their Star Wars, but she didn't do a whole lot. And-
See, I was different because my Princess Leia was pretty active. She, I mean, just like she was in the movie. So, I got all the different Princess Leia figures and stuff. Of course, I remember as a very young kid, I have an older sister who did play with Barbie. And so I remember as a young kid playing, sneaking in her room and playing with her Barbies and stuff. So I guess female figures never scared me that much.
and now, I mean, it's that's probably one thing that I've noticed that's changed a lot too, because like you said, I mean, it was just, I mean, if there was a female figure, I mean, I would assume too that if they did produce it, they were probably in a lot less numbers than the rest of the line, and they would be sitting on the pegs for a while, it seemed. But now it's like if they come out, I mean, I personally, I mean, I was just looking at over my collection the other day, and I have a lot of female. I didn't even realize like how many female action figures that I have now. But it's just not even anything that you think about now. It's just like, hey,
Right.
you need to have this in your line, because I mean things have changed too. I mean, the women. I mean, Princess Leia was kind of an ass kicker, but not like now where like you got. I mean, it's just the norm to have, like, if you have a movie that pretty much the female is going to be kicking ass in it along with the guys.
Right. I mean, look at the more modern Star Wars movies, which not everybody likes, granted, but your main character was a female. Look at the Marvel movies, and you've got a ton of kick-ass females in those movies. So definitely, the female characters, they're getting more exposure than they used to. But as far as like going back to the collecting and females collecting, I also think that they're not just sticking to the female characters. I think they're collecting the male characters too. And
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
So,
totally.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, you did mention your YouTube channel. How has that changed the way you do things? I can only assume that has helped.
So I have a love-hate relationship with social media in general.
Okay.
So social media it's got its advantages, but I never really believed, like, as social media's got more popular, you would see a lot of websites where it seems like they send their readers to the social media. Whereas I've always viewed social media as to try and use it as a tool to send people from social media to my websites.
Okay.
Now, YouTube is a little unique because YouTube does allow you to generate revenue on it, whereas most other social media platforms really don't. And so I have put more emphasis on YouTube. I enjoy it. I mean, it's been a learning experience that, I never envisioned myself. First of all, I don't consider myself any type of celebrity or anything along those lines. When I go to a convention and somebody comes up to me and says, "Oh man, I watch your videos all the time," I'm like flabbergasted that
Yeah.
that they're looking at me almost like as like some type of a celebrity or something. And so I mean, it's really awesome, and I really love that people are watching my channel. And I always try and give back to those guys, not only on YouTube but on the websites. We are always doing contests and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard for me to wrap my head around this idea that like somebody's watching my videos and they're like hanging on every word that I'm saying. To me, I'm just some guy who is just talking toys, and I'm not really any more special than anybody else out there. So
Right.
But as far as using YouTube, it is a very powerful tool to communicate with people. I mean, I guess all social media can be, but I primarily focus on on YouTube. I don't use, like, I hardly ever use it. I mean, the websites have Instagram, but I have a personal Instagram, but I use my personal Instagram very rarely. So
Okay.
I don't focus. Same thing with Twitter. I mean, a little bit on Twitter, but it's not like I'm sitting on Twitter trying to build up tons and tons of followers on Twitter. Facebook, I like a little bit better because it's a little more personal touch where, I certainly don't know everybody personally on my Facebook page, but I generally, I have some idea of who they are a little bit, as opposed to like Twitter, anybody can chime in, or Instagram, anybody can chime in. You have no idea who they are, or what have you.
Yeah.
So I like communicating on some place like Facebook a little bit more than other social media platforms. And then again with YouTube, I started out with the reviews, but there's so many reviewers out there, and there's better reviewers than me. So I really flipped to just doing news on YouTube, as opposed to really doing a lot of reviews, like a lot of people do. But I guess long answer short, YouTube has definitely kind of changed the playing field in a lot of ways, and for the most part, I would say it's been pretty positive.
Okay. Now, I know that you, even though you have the site, and I know that you still have some struggles with finding figures that the rest of us have. But as far as like your YouTube video goes, do the companies send you stuff for the specific purpose of reviewing on your website now? And if that's the case, what do you do with all that stuff afterwards?
Well, I certainly have been sent product from toy companies over the years, but I think there's definitely a misconception that like toy companies are just flooding people like me with free product to review.
Okay.
So to be honest, I don't really get a lot of product, and generally when a company does send you something, it is something that's been out for weeks or months. So as far as from a review standpoint, it is kind of useless. But I have there, like, used to be, there was a time, they don't really do it anymore, but there was a time where like I would get these huge shipments from Mattel. And again, it wasn't like anything brand new. It was like stuff, it seemed like it was just stuff that they were clearancing out. And I would get like these boxes of stuff of like Batman and things like that. And generally what I would do is I would either do giveaways on the websites, or one of my favorite organizations is Toys for Tots. And so at the end of the year, I would end up giving a lot of that stuff away to Toys for Tots.
Okay. All right. Now, what, as far as now, is there any main property that you collect over the others for your own personal collection?
Probably Marvel Legends is a big one that I collect. Star Wars Black Series is one that I collect a lot. I'm really liking the new G.I. Joe Classified line. So that's become, I mean, that's a brand new line, but that's been a favorite of mine. Now, some of these are much easier to get than others, but those are probably right now, I would say my three favorite.
Okay. What would you say, in your opinion, is the best modern toy line? You think would it be Marvel Legends, you think?
Is the best toy line?
Yeah. The best modern toy line.
Yeah, probably. Overall, yeah, I would say Marvel Legends is probably the best. I mean, again, the G.I. Joe Classified, I think, is a really good line, but right now distribution is a major issue with it. So they're not terribly easy, and they just haven't released a ton of figures at this point.
Yeah.
But Marvel Legends, and even with like one of the trends that's happening is, which is a topic all into itself, is the growing thing with exclusives. So which makes things to get harder. Companies are giving stores all these exclusives, but even with Marvel Legends, I think it may take a little while, but generally you can find those exclusives. So just overall, I mean, they're not perfect. Some people tell you their paint apps are terrible or things like that, but in general, I think Marvel Legends is definitely probably the strongest modern action figure line that's on the market today.
Do you have a specific favorite modern figure out right now?
Well, as
Just
you
off
can
the top of
probably
your head.
tell behind me, I'm a huge Captain America fan. So
I remember
like
your avatar on the
so
old forums. So
so like this one is the most recent Captain America. This is comic book based. It's kind of loosely based on Alex Ross's artwork. So they actually sculpted, I don't know how well this is showing up on the camera, but they actually
it's
sculpted the chainmail on the top of his shirt.
oh okay,
And
wow.
so this is probably right now my favorite Marvel Legend figure.
Okay.
Um, and a large part is, again, just because I'm such a huge Captain America fan.
Yeah. Cool.
I have a question. Are you in your casa right now?
Am I what?
Are you in your house right now?
Yeah, well, I work out of my house,
Right.
but yes, I am technically in my house, but this is my office. So
Okay.
my entire house does not look like this, if that's what you're wondering.
That was gonna be my question. But I am literally like, so the only way I could see you is like on my phone, like watching you on our Facebook Live. So I literally see you about an inch big, but I do see a lot going on. So yes, I was curious to know if the rest of your house was decorated in toys and whatnot.
Now, my wife would kill me. I mean, she's very tolerant of my hobby, but if I tried to decorate the entire house like this, she would kill me. This room, which again is my main office, and then I have kind of usurped the basement. So the basement is somewhat looks kind of similar to this, but the rest of the house looks very normal.
Okay. Yeah, because you definitely need room. I mean, that room looks pretty full, so that's good. You're able to at least move into the basement.
Yeah, well, the basement it's not technically a fixed up basement, but I kind of made it as fixed up as you can. And in part because of COVID, my wife started, this past year, started working in the house full time. She used to work, I always worked in the house even before COVID, but she didn't. But being that we were both working in the house, she likes the house much warmer than I do. So we came up with this agreement to kind of save the energy bill, where I kind of set up shop in the basement where it tends to be much cooler, and she can work up here in her office, and things can be warmer.
So I see, and is it Skywarp right there? It's not Skywarp. What's
Jetfire.
Jetfire? What version is that?
Skyfire.
Skyfire.
So
Okay, I knew there was a couple names, but I for some reason I was thinking Skywarp.
So this is the newest one that they did, and for the new trilogy, which has a Netflix animated series going on right now, which is in its second season, and I thought it was really good. So, but this, I mean, even though it's based technically on the new cartoon, it also is very reminiscent of how he appeared in the original cartoon.
Okay.
And I'm a huge G1 Transformer. I never really got into Beast Wars and the other incarnations of Transformers. So my collecting of Transformers these days is fairly limited to just G1 stuff.
Okay.
But this is definitely, for Transformers, is one of my favorite figures. And they even made it so you can make him an Autobot or a Decepticon, because in the new cartoon he starts out as a Decepticon and then he switches over to the good guys. But
didn't he do that back in the original cartoon also?
Yeah, he did. Kind of. He used to be friends with Starscream in the original cartoon. He was friends with Starscream, and Starscream found him. Okay. And they kind of tricked him into working for the Decepticons.
That's right. Okay.
That one episode, for a short time, he did have a Decepticon sticker on his chest, but then he threw it off at the end and joined the Autobots.
Okay. Yeah, I knew it. I knew that it was something like that. Anyway, now, which Destro do you have right there by you also? Is that the
Yeah, so this is the new classified 6-inch, part of the 6-inch line that Hasbro just launched last year.
That is one of them that I've been able to find, and I've been striking out. I think I've only been able to find 4 of them so far.
Yeah, this he's from the first wave. Now, the regular release figures, if you're willing to buy online, are not that difficult to get, and they're even being reissued. But it's the ones that they have at Target as exclusives that are a pain in the ass to get. But
Yeah.
But this is one of my favorites. This I think is probably one of the best figures so far in the classified line. So.
Yeah, I love that one. I think the only other ones that I've found are Scarlet, Gung Ho, and Snake Eyes. I take that back. I did see Duke and Roadblock, and I didn't pick them up just because I was hoping there'd be better versions of them to come out later. But
well, there are 2 Roadblocks. But the second one's a Target exclusive, and then I'm sure Duke will get re-releases down the road. But you're pretty lucky to have gotten the Snake Eyes because that's probably one of the more popular ones.
When I first saw them, I was surprised. They had quite a few, and then I went back and I saw Snake Eyes sitting there for a while, but now it's like I haven't seen any in a long time. But
I have a good question for both of you guys. Like, as a non-toy collector, what makes a toy line the best? Like the detail that's put into the toys, or what? Like what makes it the best?
Well, that's a question where you could ask 10 different toy collectors
Exactly.
and you would get 10 different answers.
Okay, I get
right.
that.
But I would say for me and probably a lot of people, articulation is a big factor. I like to have a fair amount of articulation in my figures. Some figures are more static, more statuesque per se. And I mean, statues are collectibles in their own right. So, but for me as an action figure collector, I definitely like to have articulation. And then I like to have decent paint applications. And in a perfect world, I would love to have really finely detailed or paint applications. But as long as they're just decent, then I'm usually pretty happy.
Okay.
Yeah. I would agree with all that, but I am a big fan of them throwing some of the more obscure characters into the line as well. I mean, they all kind of do that nowadays more than they used to, I would say. Back in the day, a lot of times you just got the main figures or the main stars of whatever it was, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and Marvel, you'll always get Iron Man, Captain America, Wolverine, but definitely, especially like Marvel Legends, they definitely have a tendency to dig deep and give you like characters like Frogman and things like that. So,
yeah, very unlike the old Batman line where it seemed like that was all you would get. Was that the Kenner line where it was just like Batman in like and I've never been a big Batman collector, so I'm honestly asking you this, where it just seemed like it was just Batman's in different decos, different suits, and that was pretty much all you got.
Yeah, I mean, Kenner did that. And again, that was a line for the kids. Yeah. Of course, McFarlane Toys doing DC, practically every other figure that they release is Batman related. So Batman's definitely a huge seller. So companies tend to do a lot of him.
Yeah, I know they got to do what they got to do, but but I just remember that line back then. I probably would have bought some of the villains back in the day, but it just seemed like it was Batman, this Batman. But now, would you say, I was watching one of the wrestling podcasts the other day, and they were saying, as far as wrestling figures go, that this is like the golden age for them. Just as a whole, would you kind of consider this the golden age of action figures?
For wrestling?
No, just in figures in general.
In general? As far as character selection and things like that, yes, definitely. And on the flip side of that, it is, again, going back to how we are seeing more and more figures and stuff being released as store exclusives and stuff. Mm-hmm. It is much harder to get a lot of this stuff. So while there's a ton of awesome looking action figures, like a perfect example would be NECA's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle line. Those figures I think are awesome, and I didn't even really collect the original Turtle action figures, but trying to find those in your local Target, at least up until this point. I think maybe it's gotten a little better, but it's definitely been very difficult. So I think that frustrates a lot of people. And then also prices are starting to inch more and more upward.
Right.
So I don't know if I would call it a golden age, just because there's kind of give and take there. But if you were just talking about the selection or type of product that is being put out there, then yes, I would definitely say it is a golden age.
Yeah. That's kind of what I mean. And I think that's what they were talking about as far as wrestling figures go, because obviously you have the Mattel figures that I think just blew Jax away. And then you got the Jazzwares AEW figures now. And then you got a lot of the other companies. I think Boss Fight Studios is doing some of the international guys, and there's another one, not Hot Toys. Storm Collectibles has done a couple awesome ones too. So I think that's just kind of what they were talking about as far as just the selection of guys and just the quality of figure that they're able to do nowadays.
Yeah, I mean wrestling, seems to be very popular, at least judging by how much the retailers seem to carry that stuff. So, and like you say, they're in Super Seven's another company that has done a little dangling of wrestling figures.
Right.
The Luchadera figures, like you mentioned, for Boss Fight and stuff. So, and just like independent. I mean, it used to be just WWE, and then if there was another major wrestling organization like AEW. But now you're starting to see like independent, like companies do individual wrestlers who I guess aren't under contract anymore.
Yeah.
Doing like Andre the Giant and things like that. So
right. So as far as the exclusive thing, you think that damages the hobby somewhat?
Yes. I mean, it is I think it is a necessary evil, but I think companies need to, as far as it essentially comes down to, with Toys R Us, when Toys R Us went out of business, that kind of allowed Walmart and Target to have almost a monopoly on things. And because of that, I think that their grip on the toy companies has strengthened. So, when your biggest customer says, I want exclusives, you're going to give them to them. So,
yeah.
But on the flip side of that, there's probably a lot of figures that would have never seen the light of day if they hadn't been made as an exclusive. So, it's kind of a catch-22, I guess, but it would, in a perfect world, it would be great if if every place was able to carry it. And, back like in the 80s when you could go into the toy store and you would just see tons and tons of action figures on the aisles. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll ever get back to that point. So
no. All right, I'm just going to ask you a few questions to get your opinion on. Well, actually, this isn't it's still an opinion, I guess. But what would you say is your most prized action figure or toy that you own?
Well, I figured you might ask something like that. So, this one, which is a Star Wars figure. I haven't checked the value of it in a long time, but this probably has the most sentimental value for me. And that's because the first year when I was just starting out the websites, the first year I went to Toy Fair, which is the yearly trade show event that the toy companies have. It's not open to the public. It's only open to retailers and the media. But back then, Hasbro would do these exclusives. And this was the very first year. Well, it was the second year I went to Toy Fair, but it was the first year that I was given access to go into the Hasbro showroom, which actually back then they owned an entire building in New York City. And so I got this exclusive, which, they've never re-released or anything. It's a silver Darth Vader, and he's got the lightsaber comes up through the packaging and everything.
Oh, okay.
So just because it was kind of my first, doing this as a living, going to this trade show and getting this exclusive, it is a fairly unique figure, I think, but it just, to me, it has a lot of sentimental value just because, it was one of, as a reminder of me starting out and everything, for my own business and stuff.
Oh, that's pretty awesome. That's cool. So is that is it plastic just with like a silver paint
Yeah, I
job
mean,
on
I've
it?
never opened it,
Or
so but yeah, I
I mean
believe it's
it's
just a
not pewter or anything. I
no,
mean, because I'm having
it's
a
just a
hard time.
plastic action figure with a metallic silver paint coat.
Oh, okay.
The hardest thing about this thing was this lightsaber. Again, it sticks up out of the packaging, and
Hmm.
I put it in like later on. I put it in this outer case, but when they gave it, it was just the card back, and so trying to get this thing home without snapping off that lightsaber
Oh yeah.
was a bit of a chore,
Oh, I bet.
but yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, the figure itself is it's just a normal action figure. I mean, they don't. Again, I don't think they ever re-released it in any other way, but
Okay.
so
Yeah.
it's probably got some value to it, but
Yeah.
it's really for me, it's more about a
Sentimental. Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Now, are there any dead properties that you would like to see return? It seems like almost everything has come back, but there's got to be some still out there.
I think speaking more of what I think people would like to see, I don't have as much personal sentimental value because like it's not something I personally watch, but like I know like Mask, when you ask people,
Oh yeah.
the Mask toy line, which Hasbro is working on, supposedly working on a movie and stuff. So I do suspect we will see that return.
Okay.
But I think that's probably a big one. I mean, there's a lot of somewhat obscure lines from the 80s, Brave Star. I mean, Silverhawks is coming back now. Super 7 just announced they're going to be doing
Yeah, I
Silverhawks
saw
and
that.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
um,
Personally,
but
I would kind of like to see Kristar come back. Do you think
I
there's
have
any market for that?
it could be. I mean, there's probably always some market for any of those. I had one of those figures as a kid. They were like it was like I don't even remember which one it was. It was the red translucent figure,
Okay.
but
I only had a few myself. Those were kind of hard to find at the time.
yeah, I don't even know how I ended up with one of those figures because I don't think I bought it in the store. So,
Oh,
but um, but yeah, I mean there's a ton. I mean, Cops, that would be kind of a cool one
oh yeah.
to see come back. Just all those 80s cartoons that
Right.
had maybe like toy lines for a year or so.
Yeah.
Um, and it doesn't matter what it is. You can find somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I definitely would love to have that." So
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. Now, what movies, genre movies, are you looking forward to the most? Let's say coming out within 2021.
well, so I'm a huge fan of the Marvel movies. So, when those actually start coming back, I mean, I've been loving the WandaVision
Oh yeah, me
and
too.
I'm looking forward to the Falcon and Winter Soldier series coming out next month. Um, I I have HBO Max. I don't think I would subscribe to HBO Max if I just for the Snyder Cut Justice League movie, but I'm definitely interested to see if it's going to be better than the original movie and how it
Yeah.
changes things. So
Right.
I would love to see DC kind of get things back on track and kind of flush out their movie universe
Yeah.
more. So we'll have to see how that goes. But with as far as upcoming the Kong versus Godzilla, I mean
Yeah.
it's hard to think of it as a movie because I'm going to be watching it in my living room.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, well
D
yeah, because all those Warner Brother movies are going straight to HBO Max. I mean, I
I
guess maybe
I
they're
thought they were
getting
saying that Godzilla vs Kong was going to be in IMAX theaters.
they may see some theater release, but if you
Okay.
have HBO Max, you'll be able to watch it at home.
Okay. I got to see that one. I'm hoping I do have a couple IMAX theaters near me. I am hoping that they show it because I would love to see that. I mean, how could you not? I mean, I've seen most of them in the regular theaters, but I definitely want to see this in IMAX. Um,
Yeah.
now, okay, we're pretty much running out of time, so I guess this will be the last question, and then you can just kind of give a rundown of things that you got going on. But excuse me. Um, do you have any outlook for the future of the toy collecting hobby? I mean, do you think there's going to be much change in things? I mean, I know the prices are kind of going up on everything. COVID has probably affected quite a bit.
It's hard to say. I mean, as we talked about before, again, we are seeing a lot of very cool products being put out, but I do fear that like the trend of more and more exclusives and just the rising prices will eventually, doom the hobby in general.
Yeah.
Maybe not 100%, but you know, is it a growing hobby or is it a shrinking hobby? And at times it definitely feels like it's more shrinking than growing. I think not that COVID in any way is a good thing, but I think in some ways COVID has actually helped the hobby a little bit. I guess just because people have nothing else to do, so they've been out buying action figures and stuff.
Right.
But as far as, again, I mean, if you had asked me 20 years ago, would I still be doing this? I would have told you no way. So I'm not going to sit here and say never, but I guess with the rising prices and stuff like that, it is sometimes hard to see how much longer this hobby actually has left in it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being on here. We really appreciate it. Is there anything that you'd like to plug besides visiting your website every day?
Well, that's probably the best thing you can do is just go to it's toynewseye.com is for Toy News International, and then marvelousnews.com, JediInsider.com, and tformers.com. Check them out if you're into any kind of collectible for those properties, or even like we do movie and stuff like movie news and stuff like that. So just check them out if you want. And it's a great hobby. I mean, a lot of nostalgia to it, and so even if you've never thought about, action figures are definitely not for just kids anymore. I'll say that.
Oh no, and it's been a while since they haven't been. But I try to convince her of that, but she ignores me.
Whatever.
Well, she's too busy selling human skulls. So.
Well,
right.
Exactly. I mean, that's like a whole nother level. So, all right, Jay, thank you once again, and we'll be talking to you soon. Take it easy.
No problem.
Thank
thanks
you.
for having me.
See you later.
Later.
All right. Kristin, we also will be back at some point.
Okay,
so,
sounds good.
Everybody just continue to check the Collection Reflection Facebook page, and we will see everybody next time. Thank you.
See you later.